the Warsaw Pact's collapse, internal policies and the fall of the Communist Bloc. The Warsaw Pact, established in 1955 as a military alliance among Soviet-aligned nations, was intended to counterbalance NATO and solidify Soviet control over Eastern Europe. However, this pact ultimately failed to maintain its purpose and influence, leading to the dissolution of the Communist Bloc in the late 20th century. The internal policies and political dynamics within member states played a significant role in this collapse, revealing deep-seated issues that undermined the cohesion of the alliance. Initially, the Warsaw Pact was a response to geopolitical tensions following World War II, particularly after West Germany joined NATO in 1955. The Soviet Union sought to create a unified front against perceived Western aggression, rallying countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and East Germany under its banner. However, this alliance was less about mutual defense and more about maintaining Soviet dominance over its satellite states. The lack of genuine military cooperation and the heavy-handed control exerted by Moscow sowed seeds of discontent among member nations. One of the critical factors contributing to the failure of the Warsaw Pact was the internal dissent within these Eastern European countries. Countries like Hungary and Czechoslovakia experienced significant uprisings against Soviet-imposed policies. In both instances, the Soviet military intervened brutally to suppress these movements, reinforcing resentment towards Moscow's oppressive tactics. The doctrine of limited sovereignty, articulated by Leonid Brezhnev, justified these interventions by claiming that any threat to socialism in one member state was a threat to all. This policy created an atmosphere of fear and repression that stifled any attempts at political liberalization or independence within the Warsaw Pact countries. As dissatisfaction grew, so did calls for reform, leading to a series of political changes that further weakened the Pact's unity. By the 1980s, economic stagnation plagued many Eastern European nations. Mikhail Gorbachev's rise to power brought new policies like glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, which aimed to revitalize the Soviet economy and allow for more transparency in governance. However, these reforms inadvertently encouraged dissent rather than quelling it. As Eastern Europeans witnessed Gorbachev's willingness to loosen control, they began to push for their own reforms more vigorously. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 symbolized not only the collapse of physical barriers but also the ideological barriers that had kept Eastern Europe under communist rule for decades. The events in East Germany triggered a domino effect across other Warsaw Pact nations, leading to swift changes in leadership and governance as citizens demanded democracy and independence from Soviet influence. Ultimately, on July 1, 1991, the Warsaw Pact was officially dissolved as member states sought closer ties with Western Europe and integration into NATO. The internal policies that had initially aimed to maintain control ended up fostering resistance and calls for reform that could no longer be suppressed. The failure of the Warsaw Pact serves as a powerful reminder of how authoritarian regimes can inadvertently sow the seeds of their own downfall through repression and economic mismanagement. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, it raises questions about how similar dynamics might be playing out in today's geopolitical landscape. What lessons can we learn from the past about governance, control, and the quest for freedom? The exploration of historical events continues to unveil insights into human behavior and societal change.